Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Khalid. But today is Monday, the 17th of March 2025, and these are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the show. We'll begin with Pakistan's war against terror, whether it be Balochistan or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. We are seeing an increase in the number of incidents. We've highlighted what happened with the Jafar Express, but there have been other incidents in Balochistan since, and in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa as well. There have been a spate of incidents in the last couple of days. Why this time? Why even during the holy month of Ramadan do terrorists that claim to portray to be Muslims continue to organize such nefarious and heinous designs towards our country is something to watch out for. Also, the fact remains that we see many of the incidents that happen here, but there are so many incidents that we don't get to see because they are thwarted even before they begin. So of course, our armed forces and defense forces need to be lauded for all the work that is being done behind the scenes as well. At the same time, there is an interesting meeting of intelligence chiefs also that is happening in our neighborhood country, India. And that also points a lot of fingers towards the timing of it all, where on the one hand, India itself is involved in nefarious activities in Balochistan and indirectly in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. On the same hand, it is trying to portray itself as some kind of a security giant. Nevertheless, this is what we will discuss in our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the latest incidents as far as Gaza is concerned, but this time also Yemen. There is a tit for tat between the Houthis and the Israelis in the last few days. The number of casualties are also increasing as far as Yemen is concerned, where at least 53 people have been killed in the last few days. The fact is also that this is a shift as far as Yemen is concerned, an increase in hostilities that has been ordered by Donald Trump. On the one hand, we have talks of ceasefire between Israel and Palestine, or Israel and Hamas, that are now under discussion for the continuity of this ceasefire. But on the other hand, there is an escalation of violence and also very harsh statements when it comes to Yemen and also Iran. What is the current scenario as far as the US government is concerned? Is Donald Trump changing the current world order as we speak? This and more will be discussed in our second segment. Then we will be talking about stranded US astronauts. We have talked about it last week. There are 2 stranded astronauts and cosmonauts also that are stranded in space, but now NASA has kind of accelerated the mission to bring these back, and they will apparently be returning tomorrow. That has been confirmed by NASA. So finally, good news as far as that is concerned, because these astronauts have been here for much longer than expected because of technical delays. This is the lineup for today. Let's begin our show, and our first story of course concerns terrorism, our war against terrorism that has been happening in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, among other places. We've been joined by 3 guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. In the studios, we have 2 very eminent guests today. Khalid Taimur Akram, one of his our expert on the region, joins us in the studios. Thank you very much, Khalid Sahab, to have joined us. And a very long and dear friend and an expert on whatever is happening in this arena, Air Marshal retired Amir Masood Sahab, senior analyst, also joins us in the studio. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us. And online, we'll be joined by Brigadier retired Rashid Wali Janjua Sahab, who's a defense analyst as well. We'll begin with you, Khalid Sahab. Khalid Sahab, 16th of March, a vehicle borne suicide bomber explodes on a security forces convoy in Nushki. 5 brave sons of soil embraced Shahadat, 3 security personnel and 2 innocent civilians, and 3 terrorists are effectively neutralized as well. Then we've got the Jafar Express incident as well. Last month we had 18 soldiers who were martyred, 23 terrorists were killed in various sanitization operations in Balochistan as well. Why is Balochistan repeatedly being targeted over these last few days, and why is there an aggressive approach by the terrorists? I'd like to understand this, because the terrorism has been there, but we've seen an increase in such incidents over the last few days.
Yes, you are absolutely right that since last few days and last few weeks, there has been intense terrorism in Balochistan. There are many reasons. The first reason is this, that the world has seen, and especially the countries who are not friendly with Pakistan, they saw the kind of Chinese response which was given to the recent visit of the Prime Minister, and the Chinese government pledged that they are going to fully support CPAC and they are going to fully enhance their investments in Pakistan, which is seen as a very, very positive omen for Pakistan. And also we saw the Shanghai Cooperation Organization head of the governments coming to Pakistan, and almost every Central Asian country leader showed keen interest in CPAC and of course in Gwadar. So one is this. Second reason is this, that the Afghanistan situation, unfortunately, the Afghan government is restricted to, a part of the government is restricted in Kabul, a part of the government is restricted in Kandahar, and both of them are at odds to each other. And the complete situation is exploited by India and other hostile countries, and they are continuously supporting the terrorism from Indian side in Pakistan. And other than this, India is continuously watching Pakistan's progress since last 1.5 years. We have seen that Pakistan is making considerable growth in economy. Pakistan is making considerable growth in regional connectivity. Pakistan is now also member of, non-permanent member of the Security Council. So everything adds up to what is happening right now in Balochistan. We are seeing this intense activities of terrorism only because of these reasons, that particularly India, they're not happy with whatever is happening. They, through this state terrorism, state-sponsored terrorism by the Indian government, and the loose government in Afghanistan, because the Afghan territory is basically used for merging up of the terrorist organizations. BLA initially, it used to be a separatist organization, but now it is a full-fledged terrorism organization. BYC, the so-called human rights organization, which is being supported by many international human rights organizations. So every time, so if you see the pattern of the activities happening, every time somebody from Balochistan goes and joins the BLA camp, the BYC people would declare that person as a enforced disappeared person, and they would start making hue and cry. And eventually, after every attack, we find out that those so-called forced disappeared person is part of that attack. And if you see the recent attacks against the Jafar Express and these all the weapons they were used, they were all American weapons. These weapons are loose in Afghanistan, so they are getting those American night vision goggles, American weapons from Afghanistan. So the basic, I would say, the reason for this terrorism is coming from Afghanistan. We need to sit with Afghans. The international community needs to sit with Afghan government. They need to make them understand. And of course, India. India's role has to be exposed. Pakistan is trying to expose India's role at all platforms, but it needs to be further told to the world.
And that is so true. Amir Masood Saab, Balochistan has witnessed a spate of terrorist attacks over the last few years, and most of them have been claimed by the BLA. Now, the BLA is an organization that was designated as a terrorist organization in April 2006 by Pakistan after it had repeatedly attacked civilian personnel. In January this year, a former BLA member said during a press conference that this banned group had brainwashed average citizens into thinking a certain way about Balochistan and resorting to terrorist activities. My first question is, what needs to be done to change this radical mindset within the people so that they don't join such heinous outfits as the BLA? Secondly, moving forward, how do you feel Pakistan needs to tackle outfits such as the BLA?
So thank you very much. And I totally agree that the present situation is very precarious, and we have seen a very lot of spike in the terrorist attacks, and they are doing it at will and at point of their choosing also, which is really bothersome. So the BLA, as you have rightly pointed out, had been in a very organized manner targeting the population of Balochistan. That is one important thing. Because once I was doing my MS in irregular warfare in states, they said that three things are very important for the terrorist organization to flourish. It is people, guns and money. So people is basically the population and the recruitment they do for their organization. Guns, of course, is the equipment which again they have started to get a lot of equipment, modern equipment from the raw, as well as you have seen that the equipment which has been left in Afghanistan by the Americans was also visible during these terrorist attacks. And the third thing is the money, the funding. So the organization which has a continuous stream of funding from India, from other organizations, and as well as the countries which are hostile to Pakistan, that continuous funding is there for BLA. So these three aspects unfortunately are there to support BLA, because of which it is thriving and it is doing the targeted attacks against our security forces as well as against the innocent population as well. So the most important thing I foresee in this complete trio of BLA, which is being abetted and being supported by the Indians, our security forces and our government and the population. We have to have a pull towards the population. And that is the most important thing for us to hold and to marginalize BLA, rather to eradicate BLA, that the population support should always be there. And I will be able to mention you later on also that how we were able to, win our counter-terrorism war in different other regions of Pakistan, and initially also because of the population support. So we have to really, target population and remain legitimate in the eyes of the population, both the government and the armed forces, which unfortunately BLA is in a very organized manner, they are attracting through information operations as well as through harassment and coercion, the population towards their side. And that is something which we have to really look for, that our young youth of Balochistan
being
should not
be, they're easily impressionable, and this is how they maneuver their tactics in order to
exploiting
lure
the
them in.
vulnerabilities of state as well, few of our governance issues as well. Plus, they are also coercing the population to join the stream, to become terrorists and to fight against the state.
All right.
So this is where we have to focus.
And this is what we need to focus effectively. Brigadier Rashid Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Looking at Khyber Pakhtunkhwa also, whether it be in Kadak, in Peshawar, whether it be in other areas. I mean, 9 Khawarij killed in 2 separate engagements in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa between the night of 14th and 15th of March, whether it be in Dera Ismail Khan, whether it be in Moman. Then on the 13th, there's a security post in general area, Jandola, on the seam of South Waziristan in Tam district, which is also attacked. Then, of course, before that, but that was Balochistan. But nevertheless, when you look at the incidents, there are 2 regions that are being affected in a major manner, and that is Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. When it comes to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa as well as Balochistan, Afghanistan's name comes to the fore because many of those terrorists have either been Afghan nationals or have had direct or indirect contact with the Afghan nationals. Even the Jafar Express incident, there is explicit proof that they were continuously on communication with their handlers who were in Afghanistan. Pakistan has asked the Afghan interim government time and again to stop the infiltration of such terrorist outfits through the border into Pakistani territories. I'd like to understand, after all these incidents that come to light and the number of incidents that have come to light and the number of proofs that we have established, why is the Afghan interim government reluctant to take any action of some kind? Do they need counter-terrorism support from Pakistan? Would that be an option in the coming days?
Thanks, Omar. I think the situation is quite clear. We have been articulating these concerns since long. We cannot expect anything from Afghan interim government because neither it is capable of running in those elements, nor it has the will to do so. Rather, Afghanistan has become a habitat and a hatchery of terrorism, where non-state actors, those are being encouraged. And I think the Afghan interim government, unfortunately, is acting as an enabler of both the TTP terrorism and the BLA terrorism. Both strands of terrorism in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, those have different etiology, different ideology, and different tactics, but those are being operationally linked together uh, through Indian sponsorship. And this is a reality we must be clear of. Now, coming over to Balochistan. Balochistan, you see, it's a very complicated mosaic at the moment. This is the latest recrudescence of violence in Balochistan, and the reasons are external and internal. The external reasons include the geographical location, which is in the crosshair of global power contestation. And we very clearly know that Ajit Doval has very clearly articulated that we will bleed Pakistan through 1,000 cuts. And a kind of a indirect approach is being adopted, wherein India is fomenting this insurgency financially and materially also. But all said and done, the recipe lies in the state and society's resolve to fight this scourge. And we were successful earlier on to put down this militancy in 2007-8, and especially from 2009 onwards, a very comprehensive counter-terrorism operation was conducted by a very dedicated team, which ensured that the back of BLA was broken. And several engagement strategies were also used, wherein there were elements within the Baloch tribes who were won over and who were used, in fact, by the state to fight these elements. The people themselves volunteered and the state enabled. You see, once the state shows the resolve and we take the battle to their bases, and the Baloch people think and see the actual kinetic operations being conducted and the battle taken to their bases, the fence sitters would start siding with the state. At the moment they are being browbeated, there is a climate of fear, and that is why people are getting recruited. The second element is the frustration part. Balochistan is undergoing a sociological change. There is a middle class which is more tech savvy, which is internet exposed, which is frustrated also. And unless you govern well, you dole out jobs on merit, you do development on merit, and the fruits of those developments are seen at the grassroots level. People get frustrated, and this is that young, angry cohort which is easily amenable to any narrative which promises them some material inducement and a very vicious ideology which offers them better prospects of becoming a hero. So unfortunately, we have to do a better job of connecting with that angry cohort, but that's a long time effort. And the Chief Minister of Balochistan, he very clearly articulated, and it was music to my ears once he said that from now on, jobs would be given on merit. There will be development funds spending absolutely on merit, and we will ensure that the governance is done and the B areas are abolished and the A area concept is brought back. Policing is improved, counterterrorism departments are augmented, and overall the non-kinetic component of the counter-terrorism strategy moves hand in glove with the kinetic component. So that is the way to go. On kinetic part, special forces and the special intelligence setups led by our premier intelligence agency, they have the template, they have beaten these insurgents in the past, and they will do it again. There is a need of proper resolve. There is a need to create those pockets of support within these disaffected elements, and the state should connect with them, and then these very people would be your sword arm against these militants. In the past, in Mastung area in 2008-9, the flag of Pakistan was not allowed to be flown. And in that vitiated environment, the dedicated team stepped in. It wooed the people, the hardcore militants. There are examples of people like Jangi Mangal, Koyekun Mangal, So those people, they came down from the mountains, they started supporting the state. Why? Because a dedicated team was engaging them well, it was wooing them away from militancy, it was giving them incentives, and the state was seen to be on the offensive. So that is the way we need to now operate, to take, to first map their bases. There should be a new setup created which should completely map and monitor whatever is happening, whatever movement is taking place. And since there was a mention of cross-border terrorism, of course, we have to pressurize Afghan interim government. We have to do a better job of border controls. But let me tell you one thing: once these people see these terrorists being eliminated inside Pakistan, there will be a beeline for these terrorists to flee away from Pakistan into Afghanistan, rather the other way around. Why they are coming? Because they are feeling the situation is ripe for them to operate, and that vacuum of counter-terrorism approach perhaps in the past has led to this situation and this spike. But I'm sure if we follow these kinetic and non-kinetic means, better governance, better kinetic operations, use of the technology, you have the recourse to drones, surveillance equipment, UCAVs, use everything in concert. And the last but not the least, the national resolve and unity of purpose in this hour of crisis is of utmost importance. We cannot allow any political party to detract from this objective and to confuse and sow the seeds of dissension within that unity of purpose. So I think this is a wholesome menu. If followed with resolve, I'm sure we'll achieve success.
Inshallah, I'm sure Brigadier Sahab will achieve the success. Khalid Sahab, Brigadier Sahab talks about operations, but it's about India, and he talks about Ajit Doval. Now, let me take you to Ajit Doval, where he yesterday held bilateral talks with not only the US Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, but also chaired a conclave of top global intelligence czars that was focusing on, quote unquote, boosting cooperation in confronting various security challenges, including terrorism, whether it be the US Director of National Intelligence, Canadian Spy Chief, UK National Security Advisor, and many other countries like New Zealand, Germany, Australia's intelligence chiefs were also there. Our Chief Minister in Balochistan says that we are in an intelligence-driven war waged against the state of Pakistan by the RAW and other hostile agencies through Afghanistan. On the one hand, India is behind all the incidents that are happening in Balochistan and in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa directly or indirectly, and on the other hand, it is trying to portray a very different image. And just look at the timing of it all. The timing of Jafar Express incident, what is happening in Balochistan, the last incident on the 16th in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and then it holds this meeting. What is it trying to do? What is it trying to achieve by such duplicity and hypocrisy?
Yes, we have to first see that why India is doing these things, because if we see India getting impatient after 20th of January, because when Donald Trump, he took oath and he all of a sudden announced lots of tariffs on India, and even during his speech to the Congress, he was hard-hitting towards India, because India had levied 100% taxes on the American automobile industry, and on the other hand, the Indian automobiles were coming to America. And then we saw Indian Prime Minister Modi going to America, and in front of Prime Minister Modi, President Trump, he was very explicit on the tariffs and on the other things also. So India is in a state of nervousness. They want to prove to Donald Trump that they are the main allies of America in this region. If we see the extent of visits by the Indian government officials in last 2 months, it is immense. Their Commerce Minister was there, their Foreign Minister was there, their Interior Minister was there, their National Security Advisor was there. So in last 2 months, the Indian government was in a state of nervousness, and still, because for them, America is their key ally. For them, America is their strategic ally. For them, America is like a father. And once they see that the American umbrella going off their heads, so they are in a state of nervousness because they do not, they still don't agree to the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative program. They still are alienated in the region. That is the reason that, and Pakistan is constantly telling the world about the Indian hypocritic environment and the kind of attacks which are they are planning through the Afghan soil and through their own soil. And they are using not only Afghanistan, but they are using the lands of many other countries. Last year, the Canadian government and even the American government, they had warned India that not to have these kinds of activities on their soil. So these timings of this getting together, these countries, and if you see the countries which India invited for this thing, they are all one way or another anti-China. So the India will use the anti-China theme with the Western countries. India will use this theme to get their sympathies. The India is going to use these kind of themes to get the sympathy of the Donald Trump, so that India can distract the world from what actually they are doing. What actually they are doing is that they are trying to destabilize Balochistan, they are trying to destabilize Pakistan, they are even trying to destabilize Afghanistan. The present tug of war which is going on between the interim Afghan government officials, even India is behind that also, because they want to have their permanent foothold in Afghanistan, they want to use Afghan soil against Pakistan. And let me tell you one thing, the kind of capability which India is trying to make in Afghanistan, maybe tomorrow India may attack some other country. It is not only Pakistan which is on the hit list of India. Donald Trump and his team should realize this fact that India has developed a capability of attacking their enemies in America, in Canada. So if there is some kind of attack tomorrow happened in Europe or in America and or in Canada, of course India is going to be behind that. And this is the time that the US administration, United Nations Security Council and all the big powers of the world, especially the European Union, they should sit with India, they should confront India with whatever they are doing. Because India has, in last 2 years, India has done a lot of attacks against Khalistan movement, Sikhs in Canada and European countries. So all these things needs to be consolidated at one platform, and the world community needs to confront India with this, and especially whatever is happening in Afghanistan. The other countries surrounding Afghanistan like Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, China, they also need to sit with Afghans, and they also need to put some kind of sense in the Afghan government that if they continue supporting the and if they continue giving their land for the Indian operations against Pakistan and against other countries, so tomorrow the regional countries will not support Afghanistan.
But that is something that has to be looked at, and that's something that we need to see happening and actually being implemented in action, because until and unless that doesn't happen, I think Afghanistan will continue doing what it is doing. Sir, Amir Masood Saab, our DGISPR, Lieutenant General Ahmad Sharif Chaudhry, on Friday holds a press conference with the Chief Minister of Balochistan. He says terrorists and their enablers and facilitators will be challenged both inside and outside the country. He also said that terrorists will be dealt with as they deserve. He had also said during, while talking in a private news channel some time back, that the rules of the game had changed following what had happened at the Jafar Express. He said that we will deal with them as they deserve. We will take them on, of course, as I said, whether in Pakistan or abroad. We have Pakistan waged different wars against terrorism in the past as well. Should our armed forces follow the same example of how we managed to exterminate and eliminate the terrorist elements in the previous wars, or should there be a new strategy this time? Because as the DGISPR says, the rules of the game have changed.
Yes, I totally agree with that, that the rules of the game has changed, because targeting security forces is a different aspect, and targeting the innocent civilians is a totally different thing. So once you start to target the civilians and you start to blow up the gas pipelines and start to blow up the trains, etc., and the civil installations and target women and children, then the rules of the game have definitely to be more clearer, more stricter, and we have to be very much aggressive in targeting their hideouts and eliminating the menace from the roots. So, as you asked, the previous actions or previous counter-terrorist actions which were taken by the security forces, they had mostly been very successful. But remember that kinetic action or use of force is one part of a counter-terrorist strategy. And Alhamdulillah, since 2004, where the actual terrorism was at its peak and it started to take a lot of toll of our armed forces. Armed forces have come a long way in handling and targeting the terrorist, and we came a long way in coordination and integration and fusion of resources of both Army and Air Force, and using the modern technologies also to target the terrorists both day and night. And we were able to take actions in a very professional manner. Rather, I would say that Pakistan Armed Forces at present has the best experience and have been most professionally employed themselves in counter-terrorist operations. If you compare them anywhere in the world, and they had mostly been very successful. Operation Rahe-Rast, you remember, Rahe-Najat, Raddul Fasad, Zarbe Azab, they all were very successful operations. While simultaneously there were operations being done by the Americans in Afghanistan, and they used to come here and study us, that why our operations are so successful. And one of the most important point which I would like to share was the human intelligence, and that gave us a lot of success against the terrorists. And that human intelligence, I would again come through the support of the population. And we were able to garner that support in all these operations, and we were able to eradicate the terrorists. Yes, again I would say that force is one component. So the next steps comes the build strategy, and also to give all those governance things for the good governance to the people of Balochistan and the youth of Balochistan, which the Chief Minister of Balochistan said very clearly and candidly. And if I pray that he is able to walk his talk, then that is what we actually require. A good governance, merit-based system, education, health, and all sorts of social support to the population of Balochistan, especially to the youth, which is being marginalized, which is being vulnerable more in this whole equation. So I'm sure, if we are able to cater for these things, we will get a lot of population support, and the population will definitely not go to the mountains, and we will be able to target them. As far as India is concerned, they will always look for the opportunity. They will always play on our vulnerabilities and weaknesses. So, as Brigadier Janjua has said that, Ajit Doval said that to bleed Pakistan through 1,000 cuts, and that is the strategy being followed, I think, everywhere in the world to support terrorism or insurgency. That to subdue the enemy without fighting a bullet is said to be the acme of skill. And if you study the Chinese security policy also, they say that the war is increasing while the space for the battle is reducing. So the war is actually in all the domains. It's not only kinetic. It's in the information domains, it's in the economic domains, it's in the social domains. So it's in the, of course, the diplomatic domains. So all these aspects have to be considered once we are, fighting a war against a very coherent, very shrewd, and very dangerous enemy. They have been able to garner support of, the Five Eyes, which we were talking about once all this is happening, because they know that through kinetic action they cannot challenge the forces of Pakistan. They saw that during the Pulwama action also, and they faced it. The only way for them is now to subdue the enemy through these cunning operations by targeting our, youth, by targeting our civilian population, by targeting our armed forces, and doing such sort of nefarious operation day in and day out and creating terror in the hearts and minds of our population. So, as a solution, I would say that we have to go for the regional approach. We have to engage our partners, Turkey, Iran, China, etc. Because they should all know, and even India should know, that Pakistan is too big and too powerful, and to destabilize such a country, that instability won't stay in their borders. It will go across in the region. And all have to be the stakeholders, all have to be, pooling their resources to make our region stable. And that is very important for the whole, all regional players.
I agree with you.
And secondly, of course, for us, as Brigadier Saab has said, that whole of nation approach is very important. We have to put our house in order. That's again very important. We have to say where the gaps are, and we have to plug in those gaps, whether those gaps are of governance, of security, of social contract which we have with the population. So if we are able to do that, I'm sure capacity building of civilian apparatus, civilian institutions in Balochistan, and having more of economic activity over there would definitely, bring the youth towards the mainstream, and they will be able to address the problem.
I think that will be that is a challenge, but that is I think that should be made a long-term challenge, not a short-term one, so that we can manage to curtail this on this different levels that you have pointed out, and Brigadier Saab also pointed out, for the decades to come. Brigadier Saab, coming to you. Information warfare or fifth generation warfare is also something that has been highlighted time and again. Even in this press conference that happened on Friday, the DGISPR also highlighted again this information warfare that is being waged by India, specifically citing the example of the Jafar Express incident and how the different AI generated visuals were being shown deliberately on Indian media to create a very negative impact on what was happening in Balochistan. How, in your point of view, should Pakistan now, in the current scenario, target the information warfare that is being brought on by India and other such forces who want to destabilize Pakistan? What should our modus operandi be?
I think information warfare is something that Indians have perfected to a T. And India, once we refer to in our academic circles as a net security provider, role it has been given to by the global powers, we should be mindful of this weasel word. India is not net security provider. In fact, India is the net insecurity provider in the region. It is part of those anti-China competing alliances, and it's happily doing the job of a regional surrogate, which is bent upon destabilizing Pakistan. And information warfare is just one strand of that. Digital media landscape, which is characterized by echo chambers, filter bubbles, groove thinking, and that's an arena which is already being contested at several levels. But for a fractured polity like ours, where there are so many cleavages and angularities, it's very easy for digital terrorists to make inroads, because situation is quite propitious because of our internal dissensions. There is a political party which is quite agitated, estranged, which never lets any opportunity pass to look at the country and the state's role into any security related aspect. If we view everything from the lens of competitive politics, the Indians would always find spaces in which to operate and to mislead the youth, because this social media has become such a democratizing space that everybody has become a kind of a journalist nowadays, and it's very difficult to put the filters and firewalls and to immunize the population entirely. The best recipe is a better narrative, a stronger narrative, a more vibrant logic, which could rebut their lies And there are so many themes which are being bandied about, like the case of the missing persons, which is conflated with human rights. And if you go into the details, you will find out that the reality is entirely different. How many, for instance, in our social media try and tell this young generation that Marang Baloch is peddling a narrative of anti-state elements, that her missing persons narrative is nothing but a clever fig leaf to conceal the anti-state agenda which forces inimical to Pakistan want to peddle. How many people know that her father, Ghaffar Lango, had murdered 40 people? So where is the voice of the relatives and the kith and kin of those 40 murdered people? Where is that justice? And who knows that there are tribal sardars and there are linkages within their families with those elements which completely negate the ideology of Pakistan. When we talk to them, and when you engage with them and offer them certain concessions which are over and above their entitlement, by the way, and you will come to know that they will spurn those overtures and straight away bandy the same old narrative of secessionism. So those are the realities we must confront. There's no luxury of time with us, and we must not mince our words once we say the right thing and we speak the right thing, because human rights, missing persons, and those aspects are to be taken in their correct perspective. How many people amongst the Tamils were there who missing persons compelled them to become suicide bombers? That's a vicious ideology. So that is also at play here. Why in KP there's no mention of missing persons narrative? Because there the entire dynamics are different. So somebody is choreographing these themes. Somebody is orchestrating these puppeteers and their movement.
And Brigadier Saab, I think there is somebody, yes, there is somebody orchestrating it, there's somebody that is choreographing it, and we need to, nip the evil in the bud, as they say, and, move towards a combination of kinetic and non-kinetic operations that would lead to not only stability and a change of attitude within the populace of the regions that seem to be confronted with such terrorism, and also, end at least the infiltration of such terrorist outfits from across the border, and the influence of those regional parties that are trying to destabilize Pakistan. We're a bit short of time for this segment, so I'll have to bid you farewell, Brigadier Saab, for this. Thank you very much, sir, Brigadier Saab, Brigadier Rashid Wali Janjua, sub-defense expert, to have joined us and to have discussed aspects of this. Second segment is going to be a bit, we thought we would give more time to it, but this one took a lot of our time. I'll begin with you, Khalid Saab. Israel, despite the ceasefire with Hamas, continues its killing and butchering of people. 29 people have been killed in the last 24 hours in Palestine alone. 48,572 Palestinians killed so far, and the actual numbers are even higher, because once the war ends, we'll really know how many people have been killed. To add to that, there is food scarcity. The food is not being made to enter. 15 days have passed where there is a blockade of aid to enter into Palestine, and to add to that, there is electricity blockade by Israel as well. UNICEF and other UN organizations are repeatedly calling for help, but maybe I don't know whether they are falling on the right ears or not. What should be now done by the parties that be? Is it something that's going to continue? What is the game plan?
Actually, the agreement which was done between Hamas and the Palestinian authorities and Americans and Israelis, it was quite a loose agreement, and it was basically forced upon Israel also, and it was forced upon the Palestinian also for its acceptance. The agreement lacks lot of things. The agreement basically only revolves around the exchange of prisoners and stopping of the word war, but it does not say that these kinds of attacks should also not happen. I think US needs to play a more assertive role. US needs to bring in their weight in it. Although President Trump has stopped the money going to Ukraine. He has stopped money going to various kinds of wars in the Middle East, which was basically started by Americans. But the money is still going to Israel. Israel is still being patronized. So the US administration has to have a wholesome view of the complete Middle East, because it is not only Gaza Strip, it is complete Palestine, it is West Bank also, it is Yemen also,
It's
it is
Lebanon, it's Syria.
Lebanon, Syria. So one, the US needs to stop this erratic approach of enforcing the agreements on various parties. They need to have a wholesome view. They need to call upon, they can use the platform of United Nations or Security Council, or they can themselves call the stakeholders like Jordan, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Israel on one table and make a wholesome policy for stopping these things. Meanwhile, US should again exert its influence on Israel, and at least Israel should fulfill whatever they have signed in the agreement, because they are not letting the aid go, they are not letting the medicines go, they are still attacking, although Hamas is returning back their prisoners, but they are still, the attacks are happening every day. So the only thing which has changed since Donald Trump has taken power is the word war is not being used. The word is being changed by the word strikes. So I think the US needs to, if the US will not take into account all these things, very soon the international players and all the stakeholders will lose their credibility in US. The US will face a major credibility issue very, very soon if they don't come up with a solution and if they don't make all the stakeholders sit together.
All right. I mean, this is something that has been going on, and I don't know. I mean, we have a lot of hopes in Donald Trump. Let's hope he says, as he portrays himself, to be the anti-war president. Amir Masood Saab, first US strikes against Yemen's Houthis since Donald Trump takes office, kills 53 people and injures more than 100. Most of them are women and children. The US officials are pledging to keep hitting these areas until the rebel group backs down on its threat to resume attacks on Israel-linked ships in the Red Sea. The Houthis say that we are doing that because of what is happening in Palestine, and the day the atrocities on the Palestinians end, we will also stop our attacks. Donald Trump says to all Houthi terrorists, your time is up and your attacks must stop starting today. If they don't, hell will rain upon you like nothing we have ever seen before. He also warns Iran. He said if Iran threatens the United States, America will hold you fully accountable, and we won't be nice about it, quote unquote. Is this signaling the beginning of the widening of the war that we had seen in the past, but that was supposed to end with this ceasefire?
So I think if we take it in the global context, many of these flashpoints and the actions which are going on related to the use of military, you can see some sort of connection in them and linkages in them as well. So this attack on Houthis is also an extension of the war which is going in Gaza. And as Houthis are seen the force of Iran, as you see Hamas in Gaza and of course Hezbollah over there in Lebanon. So whatever is happening in Gaza, Lebanon, Syria has a connection with here in Yemen also with Houthis. So first of all, we have to understand this thing. So it's a complete sort of ecosystem which is developing over there in the Middle East. And while you know that Houthis were already engaged in war against Saudis as well as against UAE, and they were also targeting some of the ships, cargo ships, as well as the other containers, oil containers also, which were going through Red Sea and Bab el Mandab. So that is where the problem is that the Yemen has got a very strategic location, and Israeli ships as well as the American ships don't feel safe, going from there, while being in the control of the Houthis, and who also have missiles, as they have shown this thing that once they were targeted by the Americans, They also said that we are going to retaliate, and they did retaliate,
They did
with 18 ballistic and cruise missiles. So that overall location is very strategic and very important. So I don't know, I mean, Trump has very candidly threatened them also that your game is over, as he used that. But then we have to see that within the Americans, they are voicing the concern that since the Trump has taken over and the plutocracy has started to come into the power, and the rule-based world order is over. That means that the might is right, and the people with more wealth and power are going to be the rulers, and there won't be any rule. While the Trump is very much against the wars, you can see, I mean, in the Ukraine also, but nevertheless, they do have eye on the resources, and the resources are there in Gaza. It's again a very historically strategic location which is there. Yemen itself is very, very strategically located. Ukraine is abundant with resources, and not to mention, Balochistan has got a lot of resources. So, I mean, we have to be very cognizant of all these facts. We have to keep a very, sharp eye on the changing world order, as well as the changing scenarios which are happening all around us. And Iran is very close to us. Pakistan itself is situated at a very important location, and we are passing through a very critical period. So whatever is happening over there will,
could trickle down. Basically, this is what you're trying to, and that is why we need to be cognizant and need to be
place in the
careful as to how we maneuver in the coming weeks and months as far as this whole inflammation of the situation is concerned. Thank you very much to both of my guests, Khalid, Taimur, Akram Saab, Foreign Affairs expert, Air Marshal retired Amir, Masood Saab, senior analyst, who have joined us. I would have loved to discuss more. We're a bit short of time. That's what my producer is telling me. Last story, very, very quickly, because we've got a couple of seconds before we wrap up the show. Butch Wilmore, Suni Williams, a pair of US astronauts stuck for more than 9 months on the International Space Station, are going to be returned to Earth on Tuesday. This has been confirmed by NASA. They are also going to be accompanied by another American astronaut and a Russian cosmonaut aboard a SpaceX Crew Dragon craft, which arrived at the ISS on early Sunday. Now, they have been stranded here in space for far too long because of technical issues, but now finally good news is coming as far as that front is concerned. But the space record of the most time spent is 371 days set by NASA astronaut Frank Rubio aboard the ISS in 2023, or the world record held by Russian cosmonaut Valery Polyakov, who spent 437 continuous days aboard the Mir space station. I just wanted to highlight some of these records as far as space days is concerned, but nevertheless good news for Butch as well as for Suni Williams. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new segment stories pertaining to us here in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.